appreciate your time. And so I've structured the class presentation in 3 different sections. How to prepare your business and your properties before hurricane season. Then what to do if a storm is coming, it's inevitable, and then post-storm, what to do then. So I'm just going to jump right in and start with, okay, so Margaret, let's start. Okay, only woman on the panel. Yes, right in the middle. All good. We got it. I'm ready. All right, so Margaret, can you tell us, please, what parts of an insurance policy should owners really become familiar with before a storm is on the way?
So that's a great question. They really want to have their declaration page ready. Now it's so easy. It can be sent electronically. Really, the whole policy jacket can be sent in 5 seconds. So if you have that somewhere, then you know what your deductibles are. You know what your coverages are. It's a good idea not to wait till storm season or 5 minutes before you're getting ready to evacuate to call us and ask, are you covered? What's the deductible? It's a great time to do an annual review, find that policy, get the inventory list ready so that if this LSEP or whatever storm policy turns into something, you can be prepared.
Right. So this is months in advance before, or maybe in June at the beginning of hurricane season.
So June 1st is the official start of hurricane season, right? Also, great idea. Keep in mind, you know, every time we get a storm, a lot of people are great about homeowners, not so good about flood. So there's a waiting period. So once that storm is within a certain vicinity, it doesn't matter if you buy the policy. A FEMA policy is 30-day wait, unless it's for a loan closing. And then private flood, sometimes it could be a 14-day wait. So it doesn't matter if you secure that policy. If we have some type of flood, as you know, Irma, we were predicted to have what, a 12-foot storm surge. It didn't happen, thankfully. It doesn't mean it won't.
Be prepared.
So I can't emphasize the need for an annual review.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's go to Michael. What kinds of things can you recommend property owners or property managers do to document the property condition before the storm?
Well, I think the most obvious thing that anybody can do, especially today, everybody has a video on their cell phone. I myself annually just videotape everything inside and outside of the house. And, you know, these days everything can be cloud storage. So, you know, back in the day, everything could, you know, we used to have the Ziploc, the VHS cassettes and all this stuff and stick them somewhere so they stay dry, you know, this kind of, so those days are at least over. The other reason I recommend doing it annually is because throughout the year, you always collect potentially more stuff, meaning like contents, specialty items. In the event of a loss, not only should your home get damaged, but your actual stuff that you own, it's hard to inventory it all. So having the video helps you inventory and go back per room saying, oh yeah, you know, I did have this or I did have that. So sometimes the small little meticulous things that you own are the hardest things to remember. So that's the other advantage to having it on video. And the second advantage is that a lot of times the insurance company, if you have a video, you can just send to that adjuster when it comes to things like just any damages, whether your contents or your structure. It makes their job easier too, which means it makes your claim get processed faster. So anyway, so that would be the first thing I would recommend. And then secondly, to check your policies.
Okay.
On the video, people are saying that there's a bad echo and they're having trouble hearing.
You have to talk loud. It's hard to hear when you're on Zoom.
So do you think if we talk directly into the microphone?
I think so.
Closer.
Okay, let us know how that sounds. Thank you.
Is this better?
Well, Michael, I assume that that would apply to tenants residing in rental properties as well. So as property managers, we could tell them to document their contents so that they can then use that for if they have a renter's insurance policy.
Right, because the renters, and please don't forget any more feedback, the renter's policy is strictly for their content and also in the event that they're out being displaced. Sometimes there's a provision in there that says, hey, if they've got to pay rent in 2 places, one of those places could be covered. But yes, the document your contents is always strongly advised, for any insurance purpose. So if you can do it before the storm comes.
And lastly, how in depth do we need to open all the cabinets, show the contents of?
That's actually a great question, and believe it or not, the answer to that would be yes, because as Margaret mentioned, flood being maybe one of the issues. It surges into your home. It can surge up to 3 feet into your home, and that's going to be everything that's located in your lower cabinets and in your closets and under your bed and things that where people tuck these things away. So the more you can inventory and the more exact you can be, the easier it's going to be for you, because a lot of these carriers want a handwritten, itemized inventory before they'll pay out on anything. And if you just keep forgetting stuff, they're going to keep making you amend that inventory sheet. And then before you know it, you just feel like your claim's taking forever because you forgot to put, that added extra pair of whatever shoes or pots of pans or something frustrating like that. So save yourself the aggravation, just go through it all. Probably only take you, depending on the size of your house, you can usually get it done in anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes, believe it or not.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. Let's move to Peter Pike. And I don't know, maybe should I have a microphone so they can hear my question? Our question for Peter Pike is, let's see, contract review for the property managers and sales agents. What does their contract say? Are they required to bring in patio furniture? Are they required to get shutters installed? Are they required to check on the property after the storm?
Well, thank you. Those are great questions. And the first thing is, of course, pull out your contract with your people who you're managing the property for and see what it says. Hopefully you have a contract. Please don't be doing this on a handshake. It's really dangerous to do that, because then you don't know what you're obligated to do, nor do they. Property management runs the gamut from all we do is find you tenants, that's it, all the way through a full concierge type of service, whereby it says that you have to do everything. You're responsible to make sure that everything is there, everything is good, everything is working, everything's proper. Am I doing okay? Okay. All right, everything is proper. So, and there's stuff in the middle as well. So let's talk about this for a second. If all you have to do is get them tenants, obviously that's all that you're responsible for, and I would not try to do much more than that. By the same token, if you're doing anything more than that, where you're collecting the rents, you're making sure when, especially if it's a transient, where you're doing it short term, where you let the people in, you go and check and make sure everything is still there. Even if it does not say in your contract that you are obligated to do storm preparation, obviously you don't want the bad publicity that may come if you don't do the storm preparation. All right, that's really important there. So think about that as well for your business. What is best for you? You are taking on liability when you promise to do these things. But then again, that's part of your job probably, is to make sure these things are done. You should know where the homeowner has their storm protective, their house protection. They may have hurricane shutters. They may have, old-fashioned just pieces of plywood. They may have something there. You should have something in your contract that says what they are responsible to provide for you. Because at the last minute, make sure that it's there. Check to make sure they've got all these things, you know where they are. Because let's face it, at the last minute, you don't want to have to be running out trying to find that little screw that goes into the hole in their house because you couldn't find it in the house. You may not be able to find it at Home Depot. Right? You want to go and check all of those things. All right. As far as checking after the storm, again, same thing comes up. What does your agreement say? In all likelihood, yes, you should go check and certainly report back to them. And again, I'm going to say, take your phone with your video camera and take a video. Let the people know what happened there so they can see everything. Obviously, documenting everything is incredibly important.
Thank you for that clarification. When we get into the frenzy of the storm is coming, it's hard to remember what we're required to do if we have to. All right, let's go to Renato Carotti. Do you recommend a professional engineer to conduct a formal analysis with report before the storm to help during the insurance claims processes?
Well, first I want to say, great question, but I would not wait before the storm. Anything man-made needs periodic maintenance. So you want to do this on a periodic schedule, not just when a storm is coming. And absolutely, you want to go around and take a look at and assess what you have. Just like with Michael talking about the property, you want to also assess what you have on the building itself. And pictures and videos are absolutely worth 1,000 words, every single one of them. You want to see what's going on with the structure. And it also helps after the storm, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, is a comparison analysis. Okay, what was there before? What got exacerbated by the storm? Or what was excluded by the storm? And of course, those pictures and that analysis very much helps. We could even reference, if I touch a little bit on that Miami building collapse, not even anything to do with the storm, and how important and how significant was it for that report that was done 3.5 years ago to document those kinds of things. So yes, we're talking about hurricane season, we're talking about before the storms, but this stuff is vitally important before a storm comes. Go out there, take a look at this kind of stuff and document.
What about if it is a condo in, a high rise? That association should have these engineering documents and therefore is maybe not the owner's responsibility?
You're absolutely correct on that one. There's a management board, there's a board of directors, Condos Owners Association. As an owner, particularly, you would want to pressure them. You have a voice to get to them so that they can do this kind of report. I understand politics comes into play, but this is extremely important. This is where you live. And a lot of people that are in these areas don't have anywhere else to go. So it's vitally important to take care of this and to get your voice heard. So if you yourself can't do it because you might be a renter or an owner of part of the bigger whole, you can go up the line and talk to the people that you need to talk to and get to your neighbors and come together as a group to get these people to do these types of assessments that are very crucial in the long run.
So the periodic inspections should yearly, you think? And
they could be yearly, they can be every 2 years. It really depends on what you see as the building ages and things happen to the building just from normal wear and tear or one-time events like a hurricane. You would want to close those gaps up so that you can have a comparison of what happened a year ago to what happened now. Newer structures, you don't anticipate having to be that tight on your structure, so you can extend that time period out.
Wonderful. Yep. All right, thank you. Okay, Jacob Wilcox, do you recommend that we do a pre-storm property cleanup?
Yeah, definitely would recommend pre-storm property cleanup inside and out, obviously depending on, who's a homeowner or realtor or property manager, whether it's a complex like apartment high-rise or just individual like home-owned like a residential house. You can always probably do some type of pre-storm property cleanup. If you have items outside the house that are likely to get damaged or be destroyed or cause damage to the property, you want those taken care of, whether it's having them brought inside or whether it's items you realize that you just had laying around that you no longer need. That's where we would come in and probably, take them away for you, make sure that they're bulky, they can be removed properly. and then you don't have to worry about them. We also suggest, getting organized inside the house and make sure, because everybody stocks up on supplies, canned goods, water, etc. Take the time to go through and organize what you need and what you want to have, and make sure you know where it's going to be, because if you have a bunch of extra junk laying around the house, or you've just been disorganized, you don't have the proper setup probably for a storm that it does happen, and you don't want your supplies being damaged or in the wrong area, being taken out or something like that. But if you go through and you organize it and store it away properly, you'll definitely find other items that you no longer need or you didn't even know you had. And that's where I would say we can come in, do a quick clean out and help you get organized. We can also help you clean out a bit and do all of that as well.
Wonderful. So as property managers, when we do inspections on the property, whether you only do them once a year or every 6 months, however often you do that, take a look around the outside of the property. Are there fallen palm tree limbs? Anything that you can help to clean up the yard so projectiles aren't from your property. So, and you can help come clear all that out for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right, so the section where if a storm is imminent, that named storm is heading right for us. Everyone is freaking out with supplies. What do we do? So, Margaret, let me see, what kinds of benefits does a renter's insurance policy offer for tenants in terms of getting rental rebates when they have to vacate the property?
Okay, so that's a great question, even for homeowners as well, because there's usually what's called a loss of use. And that is up to the discretion. So if they're, you have to submit the claim. So they still have to be prepared. That's not always going to be paid out right away. So it's really important to save receipts and submit that information, and that can take time, especially in hurricane claims if we are directly hit. The harder the area is hit, they tend to go to, the claims adjusters go to the areas that are impacted hardest, and then they categorize it out. So if they have to evacuate or they need to live somewhere else while that's being arranged for, and I will tell you, it's a percentage of however much their contents are insured for. So there's not always a lot of coverage there for the renters. For the homeowners, there's a better amount there. So that's why the owners want to make sure the renters also have that insurance.
Absolutely. So we want to promote our tenants having their own renter's insurance policies. When they can't live in the rental property, Peter, is it our job to put them up in a hotel or pay for another rental for them?
Okay, I'm going to say generally the answer to that is no. Again, look at your agreements with your tenants. Hopefully you don't have something like that in there. And if there's nothing in there like that, no, you're not responsible for that, because whether to evacuate or not generally is going to be a personal decision. If there's a mandatory evacuation order or even a suggested evacuation order, you certainly should make sure that the tenants are aware of that. I would certainly get them the addresses and contact information for the local shelters that are opening up so that they know where they can go. Now, if you feel for some reason that you want them out, okay, for whatever reason it might be, again, first of all, you have to check your paperwork to see if you're allowed to get them out. Probably not, all right? And if you can, obviously then you need to make arrangements for them, but you do not have to pay for these things. You shouldn't be paying for these things. This is, storms happen, problems happen, things, are problems like that go on. Now, should you also keep them informed of emergency evacuation routes? Absolutely. Remember, especially when you're doing short-term rentals, most of the people who come here for short-term rentals are not used to dealing with hurricanes. Those of us who live here, we've been through it and we know, give or take, what we have to do. You need to make sure that they know what to do. I would suggest that everybody have, you have that little book that's in the room, and in the place that tells you, oh, here's where you go to eat, here's where you go to see movies, shows, and everything. have something in there about, in the event of an emergency, hurricane, these are certain things that are always going on, and this is what you need to do. This is where you need, make sure you can hear what's going on in the news, have a battery, batteries with a radio if you need that. Make sure your phones are charged, make sure you have gas in your car. These are little things that we all think about that they probably have no clue. So it's just, you have a little thing there, checklist. This is all to protect you, all right? What's going to happen if there is a hurricane and it comes through and God forbid it hits us really hard and they decided to stay? What do you think is going to happen when all of their stuff is ruined and everything else there? They're going to try and blame you. And the only way they can do that is by saying, you didn't tell us. You knew we didn't know. But just make sure they know. I think that's about the best thing in the world that you can do.
Yeah, I like that. Put that information sheet in the book that's there. If it is a short-term rental, for annual tenants, send out a mass email to all your tenants with all that information in it. That's an easy way to do that. All right, that clears up that question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Oh, good. Renato. The frenzy that happens with hurricane shutters and the supplies when the storm is coming. So what if our property that we manage has newer impact resistant windows? Do you think it's necessary for us to put up shutters, and do the shutters actually help against the storm?
Another great question, in the sense that when the storm is approaching, you see the long lines at Lowe's and Home Depot and the runs on plywood and sheathing to try to protect windows and doors. If you have impact rated windows and doors, the thought process is that you don't need to protect them. They have been through a rigorous amount of testing. They shoot 2x4s at a certain mile per hour to simulate windborne debris. They also shoot lead shot at this. Sometimes when you go to the fairs, they're selling these windows, they have a bowling ball attached to a chain to show you that they don't break. Let me tell you something, as a structural engineer, anything man-made can be broken. So in the event that you have the opportunity to protect even impact rated windows and doors, why not add that extra level of protection? It doesn't hurt in the long run. If you don't have that ability, impact rating is better to have than non-impact rated. As far as plywood, that's a very interesting story. I hate to tell you, but plywood does very little to help protect a window or a door opening. Why does everybody go to Lowe's and Home Depot and whatnot to get plywood? Because that is a throwback from many, 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 many years ago when you had to put something up to protect it. Taping windows and doors doesn't work. Plywood, just recently, a University of Florida test by a bunch of crack shot graduate students tested various situations with plywood and sizes of plywood and found that it's very ineffective for anything that is over 4 foot in width or 4 foot in height. The Florida Building Code just recently amended the prescriptive provisions for plywood to account for that. So anything over 4 foot in width in either direction does not get protected with plywood. So as much as we see plywood being done out there, it just doesn't work. Now, if you have any other type of approved shuttering systems like metal panels or that burlap cloth, by all means install that if you can, especially in non-impact rated windows and doors.
That is a shocker. All right, thank you. So we don't have to panic as much as the public does.
No, you don't, but you do want that same level of concern where that panic comes from, but you want to deal with it in a very logical and methodical manner. And so if you do have those approved shuttering systems that I had mentioned earlier, definitely put those up.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. So we now know when the storm is coming, you need to contact all your tenants, give them the information they need. See if they're going to be evacuating or if they're going to ride it out. Have your list of people who are riding it out. do the storm shutters, get prepared, and then get your family safe, of course. So the storm rolls through, and what do we do first? Your family is safe and secure. You may not have your internet service. What's your plan going to be? So let's start with Jacob. How can you help us streamline this cleanup process if we're managing multiple properties? Which ones do we do first? How can you help with this?
Yeah, so we can definitely help a lot of property managers streamline it because we are, I would say, more reliable than normal garbage service pickup because we do same day, next day scheduling. We're always trying to get out there as fast as possible versus, like we can do weekly pickups for places and we can do bi-weekly or anything like that if somebody were to need it. But, they're only going to be coming out on those like regularly scheduled basis. And they only pick up certain items versus we will take away almost literally anything unless it's a hazardous material and we put our guys at risk. But so when it comes to like, obviously if there's trees or something in the road or that, we're pretty limited in our ability to remove trees due to our guys needing chainsaws. And we don't really provide them with that, and we don't have the certification to be doing that. So we're limited on large trees, but we're more suited to like niche debris. So like if it's a residential home and you got things like, the lanai fencing or cage, and that gets destroyed, we're capable of like completely removing that, taking it down, taking it away. Other items such as like swing sets, hot tubs, fencing, sheds, those are all items that we've taken away for people from residential houses and can be removed or demolished and taken down. And then also for property managers that are dealing with like apartment complexes or they have like, dumpster corrals where there's going to be people putting out a lot of bulk items. When those garbage disposal services aren't reliable enough to come out, we can come out and do that on a constant basis or as need be. And that'll help you guys keep up with, making sure the property is continuously being monitored. It's not obviously building up and preventing the dumpster from being accessed. All those large items like mattresses and furniture and all that might have been damaged or being trying to throw away. We can come and do curbside pickup at a reduced rate. So we work with a lot of property managers already where we come and do those weekly, monthly, bi-weekly check-ins at their dumpster corrals, and that ends up saving them money in the long run versus having to rely on garbage disposal services to come pick them up. So we do those a lot, and then again, it's the reduced rate for curbside, and it helps keep the area from having debris laying around looking bad if it's already been hurt by the storm or that, and just keeping up with everything that you have to do with your maintenance crews. Don't have to worry about removing the items or getting rid of them themselves, so they can be inside the unit actually taking care of the maintenance stuff that they should take care of.
And when all that interior stuff makes it to the curb, that's when we're calling you.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we've checked on all the properties. We can see what needs to, and we can take videos, send it to you. Hey, drug lawyers, get out here and help us clean this up.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, the same day, next day removal. It really helps out a lot of other realtors, property managers, and other homeowners in the area because getting rid of it in a timely manner matters, and making sure that it's being taken away and not just going to be left there to cause other issues. If anything ever would come through again, like a storm or that, it just makes it easier for everybody. It's getting taken away at the right time.
Quickly. Yes. Well, all right. Thank you very much. Michael, so now the property managers, we've gone to the properties, we've inspected them. The owners of those properties know what their insurance covers because they're prepared. So they're armed with this knowledge now. Why might they need the insurance adjuster to come help with this process? And if they already know what their policy states, how can you help in this scenario?
Well, in two scenarios. One, if it's your regular individual resident, that person only has one structure to worry about, and that's their home. That's obviously fairly easy, where the representation is to really kind of be there to walk them through the process and maximize everything that is owed to them. Now, on a commercial level, condo associations, any kind of homeowner association, especially one that's being ran by property management companies, documentation is key. Like Jacob was talking about, hauling things away. There's a provision in every policy for things like debris removal. the more this is documented, and these are put up at percentage rates through your policy. So it may be 5% of what the coverage A is insured for, this kind of thing. So you can see where the dollars can really add up when you have multiple properties. So the coordinating through the policy, that's just one small example. You know, when I talk about agreement or deductible or special limits that are going to apply. So these policies aren't written for easy reading. They're very complicated. You can ask Peter. He'll definitely agree with this. They're written by attorneys for a reason. It's not easy reading. So the navigation through the policy is key. It's key to maximizing your benefits. The other part of it too, for those who've maybe never been through a hurricane, this is not a quick process. Legally, the insurance companies have 90 days to respond to your claim. However, this doesn't apply during a catastrophe. So normally what happens is your tenants are going to be calling you saying, look, I filed my claim 3 months ago and I haven't heard anything. I haven't been paid. I don't know what's going on. Really, your hands are tied at that point. The only thing you can really do is revert them back to their carrier, okay? So if I was doing property management and I had to get myself a little bit more prepared for hurricane, I would want to somehow give them this knowledge and say, look, we're not responsible for the claims process in the event of a catastrophe. So therefore, we specifically request that you please contact your insurance company for any issues relating to your claim. We don't file your claim. We don't do anything with your claims, but that's what it put it. Otherwise, your phone's going to be ringing off the hook if it isn't already. Those of you who've been through this, you know what I'm talking about. Margaret, probably especially. It seems like the agent's the first go-to person when there's a claims problem. So that's really kind of everything in a nutshell. The last thing also, especially again, if you've never been through this, having somebody who's well versed in this, very seasoned in this, has experience in this, is kind of the other key to it. We take the hassle out of it. We're able to calm some of these parties down. We're able to at least give you acknowledgments that will kind of help you fend off what you're up against. And if you've never been up against it, it can be incredibly overwhelming. So let the insurance professionals do that. That's what we deal with every day, all day long. So that would be my recommendation.
Yes, Peter.
I think Michael is being a little modest here about what he can do. So I'm going to tell you a story about a client of mine who had a problem with their house. A tornado touched down on it. And the insurance carrier, they didn't have a public adjuster working for them at this point. The insurance carrier said, oh yeah, no problem. We'll just fix the roof and that'll be it. When there was a lot more that was wrong. The insurance company wants to get out as cheap as possible. When they hired their public adjuster to come in, all of a sudden it was, oh, wait a minute, you mean we have other problems here, like mold that needs to be remediated? Oh, you mean like the water soaked so much that there's more structural damage here, something that Ren can help out with? You need someone like Michael to help you if there is a serious damage there, because the insurance companies, I'm sorry, I know we love the commercials, but flow is not your friend, the gecko is not your friend. You need somebody who knows what they're doing to make sure that you get everything you need, otherwise you're going to be out of pocket. So Michael.
Yeah, Peter, thank you for that. I know, and let me just reiterate something. Technically, I didn't want to come in here and kind of do all that as the only public adjuster on the panel, but thank you. One of the things I do as well, though, yes, our goal is to obviously maximize everything that is owed to you, but I do it also I work tandem with attorneys and structural engineers, and we put together a very real documented claim file for you. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed, every expert signs off on it before it's even presented to the carrier. So you're not just getting a public adjuster who comes in and says, oh, hey, I think you owe more money. I think that's just the obvious caveat to every claim. And I'm not here to make the insurance companies out to be the evil nemesis. They are absolutely wonderful. I work for them. They provided a good living for me. They help homeowners out and business owners out. obviously the best they can, but there's a lot of times they are very restricted, and it does require more of an advocate to come in and get some of the benefits actually owed to you. So having said that, the real advantage to hiring a public adjuster is to say, look, this guy can work with your insurance company and he can put the professional claim detail demand together that they will know and understand and not be able to really review. You know, there'll be no real rebuttal. They'll come in and they'll just want to work with us and get it amicably settled with you. So hopefully that explains a little bit more of what public insurance does about taking away from what we're really here to do today, and that's hurricane preparedness. So,
Right,
okay.
yeah, that easily leads into how
Actually,
you work with engineers.
Actually, I actually had a question for you, Michael, in regards to that. And I don't know if any of you out there in Zoom land, as we all put it, have encountered this, but I wanted to get your take on this. Acting on a suburban myth. There was a gentleman before a storm that was the owner of a pool cage, and pool cages seem to be the first, what we call frangible, the thing that dies first or gets messed up first in a storm. He owned a pool cage and he decided, hey, I know that a pool cage gets destroyed predominantly because the screens impart the load onto the structure, the aluminum frame. So he went out there and himself cut the screens himself, and so thinking, hey, look, this is a great idea because the cage will withstand it because it doesn't have the wind sail. The storm passed, all of his neighbors' pool cages were destroyed. His actually did not get destroyed. However, when he went to go and claim for the screen damage that he did, and you already see the answer from here, he was denied. And the reasoning that the owner gave to the insurance company was, hey, look, I actually saved you guys money because now you don't have to give me the replacement cost for the whole pool cage. It was just for the screen. How do you, Michael, address some of the suburban myths that are out there? That's just one. I'm sure there are many others that, although there are good intentions, actually backfire.
Yeah, and I see Peter over there shaking his head too, because we run into this quite a bit, you know. And really where that stems from is he was trying to actually pre-mitigate his loss to prevent further damage, which is what in the world of law we call argumentative theft, right? We come back in and what the policy is saying is that it has to be created from an actual coverage in the policy. In this case, that coverage, or what they call a named peril, would be wind. So the insurance company, they send these representatives out, they are only looking for wind damage. The preventative thing that you're trying to get it preventatively protected becomes more like a line in the sand. It's kind of like the proverbial, hey, I had to nail plywood into the exterior of my home to protect my windows. That's a preventative measure too. But then you turn around and you ask for, well, can I get all the holes covered and the paint and everything that went through the concrete? So sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. But in that particular case with the wind, to prevent the wind damage, they would have a strong leg to stand on in terms of saying this is not wind damage. We don't owe you for the screen. And it can be argued and I put it up at like a 60-40 chance of winning, because there are a lot of arguments made during the event of catastrophe. Now, if he was doing that on just any regular windy day, he would be out of luck.
Yeah. So I just want to add one thing to this caveat of the screened enclosures. They are the first to go, and it's really important. This is where I say work with your agent before the storm. Many carriers after the 04-05 hurricane season, it is an option to insure that structure. And you can choose from limits with most carriers, not all. But here's a big thing. Look on your policy, look on your owner's policies for limited screened enclosure, because in that case, most of the time, the screening is not gonna be covered anyway. And the structure, the screen structure itself, let's say it's covered for $20,000. If it's due to a windstorm, a named hurricane, it's only going to be covered for actual cash value.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I was gonna mention that too. Yeah, and some of them do only have like a $25,000 limit. Some of them just not covered at all. This part of your policy can get a little tricky, and normally, Margaret, they're gonna call you and have you try to thumb through it and highlight it for them and everything. Only because these policies they don't always read real friendly. They start in one place and kind of follow back in another, et cetera, et cetera. There's endorsements, this kind of complicated insurance stuff. So that's something, you guys know these pool cages can easily be $75,000, $100,000, depending on the size of these things. On the smaller houses, they're maybe a little lower. So where these limits come into play is also just based on the size of your home and the size of your cage. So sometimes the $25,000 limit is enough to put a new cage on there, no problem. Other times you're deficient and you will be coming out of pocket with your own money.
Another thing to keep in mind, right after a storm, supplies are very limited. So the cost of these structures, what you might get it before pre-storm versus post-storm, very different, and you're on a waiting list. So that's why I say, don't wait, and especially the do-it-yourselfers, when you're looking for that cheapest policy, you get what you pay for. Please remember that.
All right. Love this insurance world. So Margaret, let's say the property managers, we've gone to the properties and inspected and sent videos. What are we allowed to start cleaning up? And what do we have to leave there before that insurance company sends their adjuster? They have to come look at it. What's the line of distinction there?
That's always a very common question. It's a great question. As Jacob was saying, they can go out and do next day pickup, but you also want to be careful because they want to see the damage. So a lot of times I had a client, and it wasn't storm related, but he had a fire in his electrical panel. And he let the electrician take away the old panel before the adjuster could see it. I'm not saying don't do the repairs. It is actually the responsibility of the homeowner to mitigate the property from any future losses from happening. So keep in mind, there's a hurricane deductible. A lot of people, I can't tell you how many times this question comes up. Normally there's a separate hurricane deductible. So if a homeowner only has $5,000 worth of damage and they have a $6,000 deductible, they're gonna think I'm not gonna file a claim. So let me just take this opportunity to say wrong in the event of a storm. Because in Florida, we have a calendar year hurricane deductible. So right now we are at Elsa. Right now we don't know what she's gonna do. But let's say the next name, I don't know what F is, what comes in right behind her, okay? If you didn't notify the carrier that you had that $5,000 worth of damages and document that, document, well, now you're gonna start over because it's also in the policy that it's the insured's responsibility to notify the carrier as soon as the loss is known. So, you can, if you have to do out-of-pocket expenses, keep track of those receipts. Keep video. If something does have to be removed because it's not safe, oh my gosh, safety first always wins. But take video. Try to keep it, if you can, before you call in Jacob to haul it away, let those adjusters see it, if possible, if it's safe. If there's another storm coming right behind it and Jacob can come out, that's a decision, that's going to be on a case-by-case decision basis. But really, they want to see what the damage is. They want to investigate what was related to what, and it's so important. But mitigation is key. You have to prevent. You can't just, and that's why I say, instead of buying that plywood, thank you, try to keep some tarps on hand, just so you can mitigate more water from coming in and causing future damage.
Right. So the water damage, a lot of flooding happens. Can we start removing that wet drywall? And after we've documented everything, now to mitigate further damage,
should we get those walls off?
Well, you shouldn't be doing anything,
No,
but the restoration company, I would say usually they have a plan. So the restoration company will know how far they can go in most cases to document it and be in touch with the adjuster. Your owners also want to be careful what they sign right now. You know, they can very easily lose control of their claim if they sign what's called an assignment of benefits. Are you okay?
I have a question for you.
Oh, sure.
Yep. Can buyers secure their insurance if we are not in a hurricane window?
Yes. If we're in a hurricane window, then, you know, even for car insurance, if you're driving around with liability only and you see that we're going to have, a Category 5 coming, and to let you know, they are shutting down faster. So last week I was working on auto quotes, and 2 of my main carriers were shut down because of activity in the area, not even a named storm. So really, you don't want to wait for it to get in that window. Get your coverage. Also, there's a lot of cash buyers out there right now. If you go more than 30 days without coverage, they can have a very difficult time securing coverage with anyone. And if they do, they're going to pay a hefty surcharge.
Thank you.
Yes, Michael.
I'd like to reiterate on something Margaret was talking about when filing a claim, and also the EMS, the water extraction companies, restoration companies, and the whole assignment of benefits thing. You're going to also want to check your policy, because there's a lot of policies out there right now that say you must use the insurance company's preferred vendor to start and do any work. And a lot of people don't know this, so they just, they Google who does this type of service in the event of emergency, and they might have, company ABC Restoration come out to their home, start to do this work. They sign a work authorization, and they've torn everything out, and then they go submit all this to the insurance company. And the insurance company has these provisions in their policy that say, oh, you didn't use our people, we're not covering this. Or B, there's only a $3,000 limit. I'm sorry, they've given you a $13,000 bill. That's on you. So you really want to have this highlighted and verified. The one thing Margaret mentioned is the declaration page. The declaration page will always have where to call in your claim at. You're welcome to call in there, get to a customer service rep, and see if they can answer that question for you. I know it's hard to do if you're standing ankle deep in water, because you're just really thinking about getting out of this situation, right? So, but they really don't think of it in terms of common sense. A lot of times they're thinking of it more in terms of dollars. Is why they put these things in here. So, lastly, if a hurricane does come, anybody, whether it be a property manager or an individual, there's nothing in the policy that says you have to file it immediately. You do have to file it within a reasonable time frame. In the event of a catastrophe, when everybody's freaking out and calling these insurance companies all at one time, there's a lot of times you can't even get into filing your claim because they're just overloaded with phone calls. You're allowed to have a public adjuster come out and assess your damages, walk through your policy with you, talk to you about the good, the bad, the ugly of what you're about to go through. And not even saying you have to hire that public adjuster at the time, but at least you're getting consulted by an insurance professional and not really bothering your agent who's already getting inundated with a gazillion calls of, is this in my policy or not? So it's like a shared responsibility kind of thing. So you need to think of it that way. So those 2 or 3 things can really be kind of implemented. It saves everybody time, money, and could be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I like the tip of when we're preparing, learning about each owner's policies, which ones require to use their vendors, and jot that down, have your hard copy paper through the storm. Keep that with you.
And one other thing that you need to keep in mind is you better be speaking with your owners to find out who is going to be putting in the claim. You don't want 2 claims being put in. You want 1 claim being put in. So you want to make sure that one of you is doing it, and whoever's responsible, I would document. Send them an email saying, yes, we spoke, you're going to take care of the claim. So at least that way you got something that shows that you spoke to them and who's going to be responsible for it. Incredibly important. Number 1, yes, submit the claims. And incredibly important also, please, please, please do not sign assignments of I think that was, thank you, benefits. I'm getting old, I'm sorry. Do not sign assignments of benefits. Do not let your owners sign them until after you've made sure that everything you need to be covered is covered, because I can't tell you how many people have gotten into trouble with these assignment of benefits. It's getting to be a very big problem.
If I could just give a fast example of that, it does pertain to real estate. I had a client who was purchasing a home. There was, the listing agent didn't know there was an open claim. The owner of the home signed an assignment of benefits. It was denied. They were going through the legal process, and the owner said, forget it, just close the claim. They don't own that claim anymore. The roofing company owned the claim. So that owner of the home, and this is probably illegal, but they told the owner, give us $2,500 and we'll close the claim.
Wow.
So that's another story, but the assignment of benefits, it can be, you no longer have your rights. That means the insurance company for the policy your homeowner paid for can no longer speak to you. If you want to fire that company, good luck. And it's tricky. It doesn't scream assignment of benefits. It is on the general work order on the back, usually in tiny, tiny print, that when you're in that situation, you don't know. So just be careful what you sign. And I saw 2 hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have another question for you, Margaret. Just to confirm, there is a 30-day waiting period for coverage during hurricane season, but a buyer can bind a policy immediately after going under contract and hopefully will have the insurance by closing. But once there is a named storm, you cannot even bind a policy?
Okay, so what I said the 30-day wait for, just to clarify, is if you're purchasing a flood zone through FEMA, flood policy through FEMA. And so if the only way that 30-day wait can be avoided is if it's for a loan closing, if it's mandated by the bank. So if you're just buying a house cash, if you're a homeowner buying $1 million house, and I see this often, they close on the home in, July 1st, tomorrow. Now, Margaret, I want flood insurance. Okay, you pay the premium. That policy does not go into effect for 30 days. That's the flood. There is no waiting period on a homeowner's policy. The effective date is the effective date. What the problem is, like if you were buying a house and you're closing, say July 15th, and we don't bind it. Now Elsa comes and the closing date gets scheduled through Peter's office. But now they've gone on restriction and we didn't bind it beforehand. Now there's nothing we can do until that storm passes. And I will say, just because that storm passes, the carriers have not been opening right away. Years ago, yeah, as soon as it was out, they opened up for business. Last year, I had to wait 15 days before the carriers reopened to be able to bind a policy. You know worse.
Since you said that, for those of you who are listening, the article that's coming out in the RASM magazine that I wrote involves what happens in terms of closings and everything if there's a storm and what the contract says. So on that note, I had put down, you have to wait until the storm passes to be able to get the insurance. But if you've got to wait 15 days, the contract does in fact say that you have up to, oh gosh, now I can't remember off the top of my head, it's either 20 or 30 days after everything is you have 10 days to close, but this is the FAR bar contract, all right? The FAR bar, not the CRISP. The FAR bar contract says that you have 10 days after all services are back and restored. So if you can't get insurance, they're not back and restored, you've got that extra time to go, and that may push your closing back, like you just said, possibly close to a month. The CRISP contract reads differently, and I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I don't remember, because 95 or 97% of the contracts we deal with are the FAR bars. So I'd have to take a look at it to let you know what that said.
Well, we'll look for that article coming out in the magazine. I'm sure that'll be helpful for the sales agents on the call. Yes.
Fran, with Carotti Engineering, I know you have experience looking at structural damage after the storm for the homeowner. Just like Michael, you represent the homeowners, the property owners, you do not represent the insurance companies. I also know you have had experience and work with insurance companies and written those reports as a structural engineer for the insurance company as well. So at Carotti Engineering, once you come out for a homeowner post-storm or at any time there's a structural issue and you write a report for them that they submit to the insurance company, two questions. What often do you see post-storm as far as structural damage? For the people listening, what types of damage do you see as far as roof, cage? Also, what is your experience once you write it for them, like a structural engineering report just on structural issues, and if they submit that to the insurance company before their insurance company can send their own engineers, what is your experience with that? Do they accept the report? Do they have to leave the property and not touch anything like they were asking because you've already seen the damage and written a report, or they still have to wait for the insurance company to send their own people if they're going to do it?
A lot to unpack in that question. Those are very good questions. When I worked for companies that were hired by insurance companies, we would go out based on the insurance company saying that they had a claim, and then we would go out and investigate it. We always are working independently. However, the perception to the public was that we were in the insurance company's pockets and we worked for them and they paid us, and so we would just write it to whatever they wanted us to write it, which is not the truth at all. They did pay us, but we were very independent. Carotti Engineering does it on the flip side. We actually work directly with the owners themselves, so that we can provide them our objective opinion directly, and they don't have that quote unquote perception of getting a skewed response because we work for somebody else besides them. I have found in my experiences that the insurance companies are very receptive to that. One, because the insurance companies are already inundated after the storm. They only have so many people, manpower, hands on deck to actually go do this, so that if their own homeowners get their own private people to come out and do reports, it's helpful to them because it gets out there sooner to record what it is that is of an issue. And I've seen very successfully owners work with their insurance companies on their claims and get those claims through a bit quicker. As far as other questions regarding what have I seen as far as damages, they run the gamut. They run the gamut. There's a lot of wind damage and water damage, and a very common type of report that engineers do try to parse out what is what because of the differences in coverages for those two pieces. It is very much an art as well as a science to be able to come in post-storm and be able to look at something and say, okay, was this damage first caused by wind and then the water messed it up? Or did the water mess it up such that now the wind compromised it? And so that's the where an expert engineer comes in or firm comes in and is able to do that assessment for you. And that also goes into play if you have previous pre-storm or pre-event reports, because we use those as quote unquote data points in time to be able to make comparisons of what's going on with the structure. So these are very important. I've seen it on both sides. It is very, very useful if the owners themselves or property managers themselves on bigger structures have those types of reports on hand beforehand, as well as considering getting those reports done after events.
Yes, and we are over time just by 10 minutes, but it's a great conversation. So we'll go for just a few more minutes. And if there's any questions in Zoom land, please put them out there.
Actually, I have a question for Margaret and a little bit for Michael. Since we're talking about flood and windstorm, Those are two different policies, I know. And I know that lots of people believe, well, if I'm not in a flood zone, I don't need flood insurance. And perhaps, Margaret, I'm throwing you a softball because we've had this discussion. You might want to explain why, even though you're not in a flood zone, it's a really good idea to have flood insurance.
So not to take too much time, but Florida is the state that is ranked #1 in the nation for being most likely to flood. So if you ever look on the FEMA maps, and if you go to the FEMA site, it's so informative, but I literally have clients that own houses right next door to each other. One is in the flood zone, one is in the preferred risk. That is where the line goes through. It doesn't mean the water is going to stop there. So people say I'm not in a flood zone, and I hear realtors say it all the time. Don't do that. Don't ever tell people you don't need flood insurance, because that can come back on you, your E&O coverage. So you never want to tell them or advise them on their coverage. Send them to the people who understand it and do it for a living. Anybody in my office is going to sign a waiver. I am rejecting flood insurance. I was offered it. I don't want it. So that's why, and flood is changing. So just so we understand that, we don't know exactly what they're going to be, but we know that a lot of Floridians are going to be seeing rate increases.
That
So
could be a whole new class.
stay tuned for that. And I'm sorry.
Michael, did you have any input on that?
I really don't. I did have one input. NFIP claims are a nightmare. It's all government regulated FEMA, so be prepared to deal with a lot of complicated issues when filing a flood claim.
Be prepared and also document, because a lot of people don't, a lot of common questions I get, what's the difference between flood and wind? So if the roof blows off and it rains inside your house, that would be on your hurricane deductible. When you think of flood, I even saw it in my daughter's homeowners association. They said that if you're not in a flood zone, the homeowners policy will pick up and kick in because you weren't in a flood zone. False. Any flood loss is due to naturally rising water from the ground up. And there are ways, usually with the exception of Louisiana, when it was demolished, there are ways of telling. Water lines will be left. They have ways of telling. If you can get your coverage with the same carrier, it's helpful, because then they're going to work together to coordinate and split how the claim is paid. It can be a nightmare. And also FEMA is no longer the only option. There is now private flood. Haven't been through any private flood claims yet. Hopefully we never will, but it is an option that's available and an alternative to the FEMA process.
And just to go a little bit further with the flood insurance, I'm sorry, but this is incredibly important. I have a very good friend who is a realtor, whose daughter bought a home in Houston, Texas, brand new subdivision in Houston, Texas, about 4 or 5 years ago. And they were $600,000, $700,000 homes. Everybody had big mortgages on them, and it was not in a flood zone. So nobody had flood insurance. You may remember about 2 years ago, there was a storm that stalled over that part of Houston and flooded everybody out. Understand, they were not covered, so that was a problem. And understand, FEMA, they're wonderful, but they only pay, is it $30,000 or $40,000 for it? Well, no, I'm saying, no, I'm not talking if you don't have flood insurance.
They don't have to pay.
Okay, those are just loans, but I think the most they will loan you is $30,000 or $40,000.
It's based on an income thing.
It's not what you don't want to put it this way. You certainly don't want to rely on that.
Yeah.
So, and the difference between, just so you know, the difference between being in a flood zone and not in a flood zone means that the experts say your home is going to flood at least once every 100 years. That's a 100-year flood zone. If you're not, your home may then flood once every 500 years or every 1,000 years. But quite frankly, here in Florida, because of how low we are, it's very possible that everybody at some point in time will flood. And we don't know if it's year 1, year 99, or year 999.
You guys, I'm gonna kind of gear this back towards property management. Maybe the association, we can put on an insurance class for sure. There's questions all day. I have one final question. that as property manager, concerned for liability and tenant safety. We, as the property manager, we've inspected the property, we've started the insurance claim, we've gotten a structural engineer to check on things. Peter, when can we let the tenants move back into the property?
Really good question, really scary thoughts on this. If there was flooding, you want to make sure that there's no mold there. You want to make sure that everything has been remediated, that there's no chance that anybody's going to get sick or injured from it. Obviously, if the storm didn't do any damage and there's no water in there, no standing water or anything else, you've done everything, let them go back once the authorities say it is safe to go back. And remember, if there was a mandatory evacuation, they will let you know when you are allowed to go back. I would not let them go back before that. Otherwise, as long as it's safe, yes, but if you can't document that everything is safe, get those people in, get, the water and the mold remediation is the biggest thing that I would be worried about.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any last minute, anything else that we skipped over? Any questions out on Zoom?
Nope, we answered them all.
Okay.
Anybody left?